بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters, I'd like to share with you a few issues relating to the fasting of the month of Ramadan, particularly given the circumstances that we have and some of the issues that relate to the COVID-19 situation or restrictions and so on and so forth. First thing, my dear and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in relation to fasting in Surah Al-Baqarah says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. The verse tells us that Allah does not want us, Allah wants ease for us, not hardship. So accordingly, when we fast, we have leeways. When there are situations where fasting becomes difficult and challenging. And accordingly, the scholars talk about two categories of people who are exempt of fasting. And each category have different ways of compensating for the days they missed in Ramadan. So the first category is a group of people who have temporary reasons not to fast, such as people who might be ill, and fasting might make their illness worse, or it might make their illness, or it might prolong their illness. So marad, illness, is one of the reasons why we could skip or why we could be exempt from fasting the month of Ramadan. Given the situations we have, perhaps some of us might face this situation. And it's important to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides avenues of relief when things are difficult and when things might cause to us undue hardship. And those who have temporary reasons, people who are temporarily ill, or people who might be traveling, if there is any traveling, or similar situations, then the scholars tell us, based on the Quranic direction, that we could make up the days we miss in another time. So if we miss a week in the month of Ramadan, for example, due to illness, then we can make up those days later at another time, at a more convenient time when we are healthy. And making up the days we miss, it doesn't have to be all at the same time. We could do them consecutively, or we can spread them throughout the year. And it's important that we try to make up the days we miss before the next Ramadan as much as possible. So this is the first group that is exempt for a temporary reason. But there is another group that's exempt from fasting for a permanent reason. And these are people who cannot fast due to permanent illness, or people who are old and fasting would be difficult for them. And this group, or people who fall in this group, they can break their fast in the month of Ramadan, and as a compensation, they are required to feed one single poor person for each day they miss. So if Ramadan was 30 days, so for every day they miss, they should feed one poor for 30 days or feed 30 needy individuals. So that is an important way or another way of compensating for not being able to fast during Ramadan for permanent reasons, which include old age or terminal illness that would not allow a person to fast in the month of Ramadan. Further to this, my dear brothers and sisters, perhaps with the vaccinations that are happening in our province and across Canada, some of us might take or might be eligible for vaccination in the month of Ramadan. And scholars, contemporary scholars, have indicated that it is perfectly acceptable and taking non-nutritional injection would not break our fasting. So if you're fasting and you're called or you have opportunity to take vaccination, you can take the vaccination and your fasting is valid and you can continue your fasting as usual. Further to this, my dear brothers and sisters, due to restrictions in the month of Ramadan, the COVID restrictions, perhaps many of us will not be able to do Taraweeh in the masjid. The number of people who are allowed to attend the mosque and to pray the nightly Taraweeh prayer is restricted. And because of the restriction, perhaps not as many people as we are accustomed to will be able to pray Taraweeh. And accordingly, Taraweeh can be prayed at home, not only during COVID, but even at any time. And in fact, this could be a good family bonding exercise, praying together as a family. And in praying Taraweeh, it's not a must that we have to complete reciting the whole Quran. It's not a must that we have to read the long chapters in the Quran. Any verse that we know, any chapter that we know, we can read and we can pray together in congregation as a family. And Taraweeh, as it was done at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, can be 11 rak'ah, 8 rak'ahs, 2 by 2, and then the 3 witr rak'ahs, which makes it all 11 rak'ah. And for those who want to do more, they can do also more. They could do 20, and they could do the 3 witr, making it 23. All of that is acceptable, and all of that are valid ways of performing the Taraweeh. And let's not remember that Taraweeh is not just ritual. It's a moment for us to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a moment for us to enjoy the blessings of reciting the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even though we cannot go to the masjid, we can still pray at our home together as a family. And as I said, this could be another important family bonding exercise. Further, my dear brothers and sisters, many families or many Muslims across the world, they have a norm of sharing their iftar with others. And this is a very good tradition and a good norm. But with all the restrictions that we have, perhaps we cannot do that. But there are other alternatives, and these alternatives could be donating to other organizations that provide food to the needy. There are international relief organizations, and through these relief organizations, we can donate and we can send money so that people who are in need can enjoy the blessings of Ramadan. So continue that tradition of sharing, that tradition of inviting people, but perhaps in a different way. The good things that we were doing in the past, we should continue doing, and restrictions should not prevent us from continuing the good work and doing what is pleasing and what is rewarding for us and what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear brothers and sisters, as mentioned, the Quran, Ramadan is a month in which the most blessed book was revealed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The month of Ramadan is a month in which the Quran was revealed. And accordingly, reading this Quran, this book, understanding this book, connecting to the message of this book, reconnecting to the message of this book, is very essential and very important. And I encourage you to go beyond the simple reading to understanding and delving deep into the gems and the important lessons found in this wonderful book. Perhaps you can take a good translation in English if you have challenge understanding the Arabic text. Maybe one book might not be sufficient. Looking at more than one translation might be better. Maybe both translations could give a more reflective interpretation. Similarly, commentaries of the Quran, whether it's in a lecture form or a book form, is also another important resource that we can utilize. And to conclude, my dear brothers and sisters, this is a season of goodness, a season of righteousness, an opportunity, a unique opportunity that only comes once in a year. Let's take advantage of it. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our fasting. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all our shortcomings. Thank you for listening to me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.